So here's my chainsaw bike. I haven't had this out for quite a while. It's got a Homelite 240. It still runs, but I want to revamp the whole back end here and put it on a pivot system where I can engage it myself from the handlebars on a lever. So right now it's always engaged, which is kind of a pain in the butt. I'm gonna rip all this off, then I'm gonna have to somehow figure out how to make some kind of lever that'll go up and be spring loaded. I had put this here for the throttle but never got around to it, so I gotta fix that once I fix the back end. I'm gonna put another lever here so that you can press to disengage it and then just release it to grab so that you can pedal. So the bike looks pretty tough for that. It was like a little stunt bike or something like that, so there's a lot to work with, and it's going to take a bit of time because you got to figure out all that stuff before you actually cut the bike or weld stuff on. So I want to make sure I do it right this time. This here basically was just a test run to see how good the engine would be under load, and I know it does work good for that. I'm working on the chainsaw bike today. I've been spending most of my time trying to figure out how to revamp this on a pivot system, and I came up with this idea with this rectangular square tubing. I'm going to cut out a notch right here about 2 inches deep just on one side like that, and then I'm going to insert it into the rectangular tubing of the back of the bike and put a bolt in the center right at the bike, and then it'll be able to pivot like that. So once I've got that cut out, it's going to be like that. There'll be a bolt here, which this will come down, and the bolt will act as the pivot point. And then I'll just weld a platform here to put the chainsaw motor on. And also I don't want my feet to hit the chainsaw when I'm pedaling. I want to keep the option of having the pedals and the motor. So I'm just going to mark up what I'm going to cut out, so approximately to here. Actually, I'll make it a bit further. So I'm just going to cut out this face here and see how that goes. There's going to be a lot of trial and error, so it's just something you got to be patient when you do it. So I'm going to start with that. Now we'll try it on. So it's a bit limited here, so I'm gonna have to cut some off the top here and maybe a bit more at the bottom, but mostly here for now. So here's my metal. I had to make a few modifications to it. I cut this a further back, and I cut a chunk off the top and cut this on an angle. So this is how it's going to go, like that. Then it can pivot up a bit. It's going to be bolted down here. So it basically just goes over top like that. Once that's bolted, the motor is going to go up here. There'll be a little plate here to house that, and it'll sit here, and then you can engage it and disengage it. So it'll sit there. I'm going to grab a grinder with an actual grinding disc, not a cutting disc, and smooth out all the edges so they're not sharp. This is the grinder I'll be using, so it's a wider disc. It's wider than the cutting disc, and I'm just going to smooth that out. So I've got it a lot smoother, and later on I'm gonna pass a file on there and just give it a quick coat of paint. I've marked a hole here with a pencil. It's kind of hard to see. When you're drilling through metal like that, unless you have a drill press, start with a smaller bit, then work your way up to the bigger bit. So I started out with a 1/8 hole. Now I'm working my way up to a quarter. So I'm actually going to try it on the bike with a 1/4 inch first, just to make sure. So I've marked over here where I'm going to drill on the bike. So I'm going to go with 1/4 inch first. So that's how it's going to go. I put the bolt through, but when I'm done the project, I'm going to put the bolt on the other side, so the nut's on this side, and it seems to work good. So it's going to pivot like that. I have a lot of things to do yet. I got to fix up the cable to bring it up and down, have it spring loaded, put a bar down here to grab the spring. I'm glad with the progress so far, and I think it's going to work good like that. I'm going to leave it at a 1/4 inch bolt in here, because I realize if I put a bigger bolt, it may weaken the frame. It's really thin, the frame. I'm a bit surprised by that, and I don't feel like reinforcing that just now. In our next video, I'm going to be making the square cage here, sit the chainsaw on, using 1-inch square tubing. So I got to calculate just how big to make that frame, and then I can weld it together and put it on that piece that's already here, and then put a platform on there. So that'll be in part 2, and hope to see you back.